Földvári online. So while Professor, you're sharing your screen, I will introduce you. Professor Sándor Alexander Földvári received his degree in Old Greek and history, as well as in philosophy and the Russian and Ukrainian languages from Budapest University and Debrecen University in Hungary. He held various research and teaching positions across different institutions in Hungary. He's currently working on 2 monographs. The first one deals with the reception of Ukrainian culture in Hungary throughout centuries, and the other one with book trade and book migration between the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth and the Habsburg Empire. And Professor Földvári will be speaking about Belarusian liturgical books in the Hungarian kingdom, evidence of the confessionalization. So, Professor Földvári, the floor is yours. Professor Földvári, can you hear me? No, I don't know. Professor Földvári.
Okay, so you can now hear me, and
yes.
You can see now my presentation. So
yes.
Thank you so much for your patience. I have got a promise from the internet network provider that they promise to fix any mistake during 3 days. Albeit I fixed it because we have no time. So next, I am not a professor, but a research fellow, and my field is the book migration between the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth and the Habsburg Empire. So if you can see my share screen, then I go ahead. So a technical question, can you see the map? So can you see my slides are going?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so to emphasize the role of the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth in the East European history, I wanted to refer to Paul Robert Magocsi, a famous historian of Slavic peoples in East Europe, as Ukrainian people and others. I mean, Paul Robert Magocsi is known for you, and he emphasized that the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth was of the same weight as the Habsburg Empire and the Ottoman Turkish Empire. Therefore, if we investigate the cultural impacts beyond the borders of the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, it must be regarded as an impact of such a great multicultural empire as the Habsburg Empire. And we have in Hungarian, in recent book collections in Hungarian kingdom, four books, but all these are rarities. First, in chronological order, the Apostle printed by Spiridon Sobol in Kutain. So Belarusian colleagues may know that the Apostle was printed first in Kiev in Ukraine, because Spiridon Sobol managed the typography in Kiev in the Podol district, so in Ukrainian Podil, and actually, and that place where nowadays there is the Museum of Books of Ukraine, directed by Valentina Boczkowska. So in that place, and that is in Podil, so that place Sobol printed an apostle, albeit he was of Belarusian origin from Mogilev. Mogilev was the second greatest city in the Grand Duchy of Lithuania, such a multicultural city as Vilna, albeit we haven't yet such a monograph about Mogilev as, for instance, Leonid Timoshenko, a very famous Ukrainian scholar, wrote about Vilna or Vilnius. I can see that Pavlo is familiar with the works of Leonid Timoshenko, so I want to highlight that Mogilev is worthy to get such a monograph as Vilna. And then Spiridon Sobol returned to Belarus or Belarus, he printed the second edition of the Apostle in Kutain, albeit no example, no copy were held in the territory of Belarus until the last few years, when the copy of the Russian National Library from Moscow was transferred to Mogilev. That is another story. But we in Hungary have such a copy. Therefore, I mean, it's of great significance. Then a 4 Gospel Psalter printed in Vilna or Yevye. I know the Belarusian colleagues know the problem of debates of the parallel printings in Vilna and Yevye, no in Lithuania and Vievis. So we have no time to put in details. Thus, my master Esther Oitosi, a lady who was my teacher in the old printed books, identified that our copy was printed in Vilna because she wrote a letter to Guseva and Kameneva to Moscow, and Kameneva answered that she was of that opinion that this was printed in Vilna. Albeit, I mean, this is still an open question. Then 2 examples of the Supras Liturgicon, and I have already published a lot of papers about exceptions of Supras Liturgicon, so I know only summarize that it has significance in the aspect of the Greek Catholic Church or the Uniate Church. Actually, the Greek Catholic Church, Uniate Church, was named as Greek Catholics by Maria Theresa in the Hungarian Kingdom. And the Supras Liturgicon was imported to the Hungarian Kingdom because it was the first entire liturgical book for the Uniate use. Not the first, not the very first, because the very first Služebnik was printed by the typography of Mamonici brothers much earlier. And then a psalter printed by the Orthodox Confraternity in Mogilev, albeit the equipment, the letters at the Mogilev Confraternity were inherited from Spiriton Sobol. So that last book was printed by those letters which were used by the Sobol. So my paper is dedicated to Professor Dmitry Karev in many aspects. First, he was very active to organize contacts between the Hungarian research life and Belarusian research life. Then he published a series Nash Radavod, and he was a very remarkable scholar and very good person by character. So I dedicate my work to his memory. And why these books put to the Hungarian Kingdom? Because a Russian scholar, Sidorov, and the Ukrainian scholar, Isayevich, highlighted that the level of the book printing and book art was much higher in the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth than in Moscow. Isayevich published a lot of papers about it, that the first about this question that why the book trade went so far and why the quality of books was much higher, was published in a collective book as a book chapter in the Consumption and the Word of Gods, and then reprinted in Isayevich books. And Isayevich highlighted, I only quote one sentence, that in Russia, the printing was organized by the state, and the huge, I don't read this quotation because we have not so much time. In Russia, only huge typography couldn't manage the demands of the market. But the small typographies were managed by the brotherhoods, the confraternities, were very market-oriented and flexible. Then this idea is in details is very expressed in Isayevich books, such as which was published in Canada. And now I wanted to put the attention to the other to another author, Antony Mironovich, about this topic of the book printing and the quality of the role of brotherhoods and confraternities. And this is as the Russian Sidorov wrote, that in Ukraine the private patronage resulted the market orienting activity of brotherhoods typography. And the Debrecen University Library is the center of the book studies in the recent Hungary, and most of books came from the former monastery of Basilian in Mariapocs in East Hungary, and even okay. So let's go in chronological order. As far as I remember, I have already said you that only 2 examples were known from the Apostle of Spiridon Sobol, and this book is held in the Debrecen University Library. That's why I am now showing Debrecen University, and Golinchenko mentioned only the 2 examples in the Russian libraries, albeit we have the third. And let's go on. Let's go on. Yes, Sobol. Yes, and Kirayeva still wrote that there is no example from the 2nd edition of the Apostle. You can see that Kirayeva dealt with the 2 examples of the 3rd edition of the Apostle, which was printed in Mogilyev. And Kenko, a journalist, reported that the copy of the Moscow, the Russian National Library in Moscow, was transmitted to Mogilyev. Okay, so let's go on. And why these books put into Hungarian kingdom? Because the Church Union went in Hungarian kingdom in the 1646 in Uzhhorod, thus almost a century after the Brest Union, not a half of the century after the Brest Union, albeit the erection of the Munkachevo eparchy happened only in the late 18th century. And until that, the Roman Catholic bishop in Eger in North Hungary was the official patron of the Greek Catholics, and that's why a lot of books put to the Roman Catholic Library in Eger. So my master Esther Rojtos reconstructed the ruined library of the Basilian in Mariapocs, the monastery in Mariapocs, because the socialist time, the communist comrades ruined the monasteries, as it's well known. And she described, for instance, that we have a very long inscription in that gospel printed in Vilna or Yevye. I have already said why I'm speaking Vilna or Yevye, because I am still leaving open the question in Yevye or Vilna, so we can reconstruct the migration of books and the usage of books in these monasteries. And my master Esther Rojtos described some other collections too, and she found the first example of the Supras Liturgicon in the Nyíregyháza Greek Catholic Theological College. Then I found the second example in the Eger Roman Catholic Library, as I have just said, because the Roman Catholic Bishop of Eger was the official patron of the Greek Catholics of the Carpathian territory. Thus, you can see what a far distance these books put from the Grand Duchy of Lithuania, for instance, to Eger in Hungary. And this is the library where, in the Roman Catholic library of the Roman Catholic Eparchy, where more than 40 items are being held. For instance, the Minea consists of 12 volumes, so about 50 volumes, even nowadays. And I am soon finishing, but this is the most important slide in my presentation, that we have some archival sources that the Pochayev Lavra were in trade contacts with that Roman Catholic bishop in Eger, and the Pochayev Lavra gave price list of books in price list of the Lvov Orthodox brotherhoods and the price list of the Pochayev Lavra. And then the Pochayev Lavra gave price lists in parallel in Polish zloty and in Rhenish florin. The Rhenish florin were introduced by Empress Maria Theresa as the convertible value of that time in Europe. So the Pochayev Lavra answered that they wanted that this is such a case as, for instance, in nowadays, someone give price list in American dollars and euros. So it was a very, very modern way of the book trade, and these archival sources are just being published in some conference theses in Dnipro, in Ukraine. These were published, so we can now define the value of these books in the target country. If we had known the price of these books in the territory of the Grand Duchy of Lithuania, then we could reconstruct what changes, what financial changes were caused to these books, why they were transmitted for such a far distance. And for instance, in Ukraine, there were made such researches by Shustova. She is a researcher at the Russian State Library in Moscow. Shustova studied and completed a monograph about the book trade of the Lviv Orthodox Brotherhood. Albeit when I asked Golinchenko, you know who is Golinchenko, what about the researches of book trade in Belarusian territories, he answered me that nothing has yet been done. So, I go to the last book, the Mogilev Psalter. The Mogilev Psalter is of great significance, as I have already said, that letters inherited from Sobol, that Mogilev was the second important city after Vilna, and Mogilev had good trade relations. And if the Pochayev Lavra, the Greek Catholic Pochayev Lavra, accepted such books, for instance, no wonder that Pochayev Lavra transmitted the Srupsa Služebnik, because Supras Basilian underwent some decrease in the 18th century when the Pochayev Lavra was flourished. Thus, Pochayev Lavra transmitted books of another monastery of the Basilian order. Albeit Pochayev Lavra transmitted books to Hungarian kingdom even from such an Orthodox typography as Mogilev Brotherhood. Why? Because it was such a famous book that in the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, everybody knew which books were of greatest significance and highest level. Okay, I mean this very, and last, it is the description of this psalter in Golinchenko. And last but not least, this copy is being held in a Calvinist library, not in the Debrecen University Library, which collected the formerly ruined church libraries, not in the Roman Catholic Library in Eger, but in a Calvinist library, due to a donation. What does it prove? Then in Hungarian kingdom, the learned elite, even in Protestant churches, knew that such a book printed in Cyrillic letters was of great value. Therefore, they donated it to the great library of the Calvinist Theological College. Thus, conclusions. That book typographies in the Grand Duchy of Lithuania, thus Vilna and Mogilev and Spiridon Sobol, and the famous Supras typography were put on such a far distance because of their high quality, because they had good reputations. Otherwise, the Hungarian Basilian monks could import only books from the Lviv Orthodox Brotherhood. And my final, but my most favorite conclusion is that Riccardo Picchio's concept about Slavia Orthodoxa and Slavia Romana must be modified, because in Hungarian kingdom, such as in the Polish Rzeczpospolita, but I'm speaking about the Hungarian kingdom, there were living different Slavic ethnicities, such as Serbs, and Serbs also imported books from the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, but this is not the topic of this paper. I have already wrote about it. And Romanians also imported even Ukrainian books. Even Piotr Mstislavich, when quarreled with Mamonici brothers, went to Ukraine and had some gravures, and such gravures put to the Southern territories, even to Romania. Thus, some book gravures from Mamonici typographies were put such as Southern territories as Romania. Thus, Riccardo Picchio's concepts must be modified, because such enclaves, such islands of the Orthodoxy among the great sea of the Roman Catholic culture were living and provided by their brothers, Orthodox brothers in the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth. And the book trade as a financial topic must be studied. So I hope to complete a monograph about the book trade between the Ukrainian typographies and Hungarian kingdom, albeit a chain is missing, as I have already mentioned. Still, researches in the history of finances, the history of trade. So book is not only a cultural subject, book is a subject of the economy. Book is book is of great value as a subject of economy, and such investigations still, will be task of the future Belarusian researches. So thank you for your attention, and I am more than happy if you have some critics, questions, and proposals.
Thank you very much, Professor Földvári. And